Hi everyone, Mark Donovan from HomeAdditionPlus.com. I wanted to share with you my experience that I've gone through the past couple weeks having a whole house generator installed in my home. Suffice it to say, it was quite an interesting process, and I learned quite a few things to think about when you're thinking about buying your own whole house generator. I'm going to show you the generator itself, and then I'll walk you through some of the features about it. So as you see, we installed a Kohler 14 kilowatt generator. It was actually installed by Generator Connection. It took about a 2-week process to get the whole installation done. And here's the inside of the generator. As you can see, easy place for checking the oil level or to put more oil into it, as well as the air filter. And then over here we've got a control panel to basically turn it on or off or put it in auto mode, or to basically cycle through various diagnosis capabilities on it. As you can see here, the generator is fed by 220-gallon propane tanks. And basically what we needed to do is run copper pipes from those propane tanks over about a 15-20 foot stretch to the generator. So when I went out and looked for a whole house generator to buy, I looked at the Generac generators and I looked at Kohler generators. Each one being sold at 2 different companies, or at least those companies were pushing one or the other. What I was interested was getting a slightly smaller generator where I could do load management sharing of items that I didn't necessarily critically need to have running, such as air conditioners, a dryer, and the oven or stove assembly. With the Generac generator, I was being quoted, go with the 22 kW system and have everything running on it. There's no shedding or removal of any items from the house. There's no sharing. Everything is just powered up. And this house is about 3,500 square feet. I wanted to look at a smaller system of 14 kilowatt, which is what I went with Kohler, that had sharing capabilities, management sharing, or also the ability to literally shed some items I didn't care that much about. Again, the air conditioning system, the dryer, and the stove oven assembly. In the end, the Generac generator folks said either buy the 22K system or buy a 16K system and have a bunch of separate boxes for those items that you want to share, do managed sharing. I decided to go with the 14 kilowatt system from Kohler because they had the integrated management capability that I wouldn't need to have a bunch of remote boxes around the house for the items that I wanted to share in the system. The other thing that was interesting with Generac generator, it was either buy the 22K watt system or 16K watt with these managed boxes that when you added them all up equaled the same price as the 22K watt system. So I thought that was kind of odd. So in the end, I decided to go with this 14 kilowatt Kohler system with the managed services, and the cost of this system was about 40% less than the 22 kilowatt Generac generator or the 16K watt with separate management load boxes. So definitely want to think about that when you're looking at buying a generator. Another major consideration when installing a whole house generator is where you're going to locate the generator and where you're going to locate the propane tanks if you need to use propane versus if you have a natural gas line. In my case, I was told because of the soil, the trees around my property and so on, that I really needed to position it on the side of my house that basically had about a 15 to 20 foot span between where the generator would be and the tanks. What I kept hearing about from both vendors was that the cost of digging the trench was just so exorbitantly high that you really need to keep that distance as short as possible. I mean, it was almost humorous, the concern that was being raised about the digging of the trench, which took all of about 15-20 minutes from what I observed. But be forewarned that you're going to be asked to keep the generator in the propane tanks as close as possible, and if not, you're going to pay a significant premium for having the folks dig an 18-inch deep trench. And that's another point. The trench had to be 18 inches deep for the lines, and the same gas lines as well as the electric wiring that was required went into that same trench. Another thing to think about is if you're using propane in your system is whether or not you want to buy the propane tanks or you want to rent them. I had quite the learning experience in that process. We've had a propane tank, a 120-gallon propane tank for a number of years for our gas stove that we have in the house. And we pay about $3.50 per gallon for that. Well, what I found out is if I actually bought my tanks, I'd pay about $1.50 to $1.70 per gallon for the propane. So that's what I wound up doing. I wound up buying 2 propane tanks. They suggest I need 2 120. They said some people can make it work at 120, single 120 gallon tank, but was not recommended by both generator companies. So I went with the 220 gallon tanks, purchased them, and we filled the tanks for about $1.50 a gallon. And so definitely want to consider buying the tanks outright. It'll cost you about $2,000, about $1,100 for the tanks, and about another $800 or $900 for them to do all the gas fitting and piping between the generator and the tanks. So definitely want to think about the tank situation when installing a generator, because you could save a lot of money down the road by just buying the tanks outright. So that pretty much covers it for my tips on having a whole house generator installed in your home. If you have other home improvement questions, make sure to visit HomeAdditionPlus.com today.